browse the entire universe, if possible. So you can imagine what is going to be the storage requirements. And at what speed we have to approach this. I think right now the academia is moving at cycle speed or walking speed. Whether you require a car or aircraft. So that industry has to tell at what speed we have to approach that. Then one particular thing mentioned was about the seriousness of the projects. I think it's not only in this area, everywhere seriousness is lacking. So that requires special attention both from the academia as well as industries. Many times the students are doing projects for the sake of doing the projects. They don't really learn anything. So not only in the storage area, none of the area they don't really learn anything by doing a project. And so we expect the drive from the industry. Thank you.
I think both of us. Looks like that the concept of an elective course is something we should start working on right away. I completely agree with Prof. Sebastian. Sometimes we don't have an MTech in operating system, right? So similarly, an MTech in storage is kind of too narrow. Maybe we don't need to debate that. So we'll come back to that. But with the elective course we can start. But even for starting that, you definitely need support from industry, in the sense that there's no point teaching a course without a lab. I think a course like storage should not be done without a lab. And then whatever it takes, we need to find a way, because somebody has to put the money, somebody has to also kind of provide the technical support, etc. So both the vendors like the EMC and others who are in this business, as well as companies like Mindtree, who are kind of providing system integration built on this, maybe they should come together. Luckily, I think all of you being present here, that is something which we should kind of take it up. And so I think professors like to give homeworks, right? So how can I go without a homework? So all that I would say is Q1, Q2, 2009. Okay? I think because academics we believe in nice cycle like June, July. Okay? So July 1st, okay? I think Mindtree and EMC together should think of setting up a nice storage lab in Nitin. And let me say, I think the project is an area where we should probably definitely spend some time. But I thought that let me also look at the other thing which came about. I think I completely agree. The broad research question is what we call the quantum and the relevance. If many of you really look at it, Google has been extremely successful, but quite often we forget. And one of my good friends, he's a kind of leading person in IT industry. He keeps saying, he happens to be a person of Indian origin. He says, Google is very successful. But let me ask the students. Any of the students, do you remember the picture of Mirabai? Anybody who remembers the picture of a Mirabai? Students? Yes, there are some students there. So what do you find in Mirabai's hand? She uses an instrument. You know what is it called? It's a string instrument. No? Okay, tamburi, but it's a specialized tambura. Because it has exactly one string. So it's called ek tar. So Google is an ek tar. Because what happened is Google has been extremely successful in one thing, but not been successful at all in anything else. If you really look at it, we have to be very critical. Because what happens is they took a particular area where it can manage a reasonable amount of quantum with a reasonable amount of relevance and a fair amount of speed. If Google says, I will get you all the results accurately for what you want, but give me exactly 15 minutes, nobody would use Google. Right? And second thing is, if Google says that, look, I have got all the information I want, but it is actually dumped in your hard disk, which is about 420 megabytes, go through bit by bit, nobody would do it. So what Google does is this kind of deadly combination of speed, relevance, and managing this large quantum. Okay, and if you really look at it, touchwood for Google's advantage, this problem is what is called inherently supports what is called graceful degradation. What I mean by graceful degradation is, If Google actually, instead of giving you 160 million, if it gives you 159 million, nobody would know. Because, some number comes in. Whether it is right or wrong, no one cares. So even if it makes mistake, it's okay. Second thing is, of the 10 or 20, 100 which they give, if 1 or 2 are irrelevant, you still don't care, you kind of ignore it. But of course, if 9 out of 10 are junk, you would not ignore it. So what happens is that both in the quantum which it gets and the quality it gets, even if there are mistakes, there are no problems. Unfortunately, when Karthik is actually going to look for his bank balance, and if by chance they show my bank balance, he will get a shock of his life. What happened to many zero? This thing is what he will say, right? So the question is that occasionally Google does misclassification, right? You can't get it. Oh, the bank cannot say, oh, you only happen to be having the account number next to Karthik, right? So things like that you can't do. So what is important is that there are some basic research questions. I think one you brought out extremely well. So how do you cope with this quantum as well as the quality? Okay. So there are some interesting research problems. What I would like you to kind of spend on is that would it be kind of worthwhile for EMC to kind of take these two and formulate a set of research problems? Of course, within research you can have what is called noble quality research, and you can also do what is called actionable kind of research. If you can put out something like about half a dozen project ideas, which at least will start sensitizing the students to this problem. You cannot solve the problem because this is something which is going to be there forever. So it might be a good starting point. So I just want your feedback. I'm saying the next 3 to 6 months or maybe the next 1 year, you could probably work with this college or some of the colleges which are represented here. Even if you can have half a dozen interesting projects, which people can take it up next January to June, I think you would have done some purpose. So any response, reaction to that?
So let me kind of share a little bit of reality that we also face. A lot of product companies that I am part of RSA and EMC. A lot of product companies themselves are facing this struggle of how to get the high-end work here, how to get the research work here. It's not that completely sorted out problem. So I happen to be part of research advisory team, which is headed by particularly at RSA. Now, for last 6 months, that's exactly the agenda I'm working on. Like, what areas of research can we get to? And I'm also trying to get academia into it, right? So it's a two-side problem, right? So what the researchers there are asking, and they are like top-notch in their area, right? They're asking, unless we see some some evidence of interest in this domain already, right? It doesn't work out that we can actually give a problem out and expect some results. So and then at a geography level also the same thing. Like when EMC, so the size of these companies has already reached a level where we are talking about centers of excellence. So for EMC, when it thinks about moving some projects or products to India, the question is, what is the excellence the center is going to show? So, for example, it is easier to move some hardware work to Taiwan, right? It's easier to. So right now, Russia is having that kind of thing that if there is something which is related to research and all, maybe it's easier to move to Russia. The question is always going to be first. That's the question that we are dealing right now. What is the center of excellence? What are the unique capabilities that exist in our academia that EMC or like some of these multinationals can leverage? Right? Can India become a hub of certain competencies? So I think services and the project, the application development, I think is well known. But now as we move on to the more of little bit of research side of things, that's where it comes. Like it is important to understand which academic